One thing's for sure. If we want to get from this place to this place, we will need an airlock. And if we want to get from this place to this place, we will need an airlock. And if you want to share a station with volatile breathing Zrilians, or whatever else monstrosities you might have in mind, and if they shall all work together efficiently, then you would end up building a whole lot of airlocks. From every place to every place. So many airlocks. From this room with the volatiles to the outdoors. From this room to the indoors. That would be 2 airlocks. From here to over there to the special green room there, another airlock. And so on and so forth. But why? Why not just make a 4-sided airlock? Particularly if it's even fast. And always gets you where you need to go. I mean, the right gas mixture. 20.6 or so, I remember. 20.6, yeah. Moles of N2O. 50.5 or something. Kilopascals. Yep, here we go. 50.5. Always constant, always reliable. Airtight, fast, convenient. 4 sides. Outside. Inside. Zrilian section. Whatever you keep over here. Yeah, possible. How? One might think that a large powered vent is not a good idea for such an endeavor, because then you only have room for one. But on the other hand, that's exactly the vent that you need then, because it will also be very fast. Very fast to do what? Very fast to fill and also, most importantly, empty the buffer. See, the problem with an airlock like this is this vent up there would suck volatiles from this room if I just came from the volatiles section. And then I open the main room with the breathable air. And then I would come from there and walk to any place, and then they would have to suck normal air from this room. So it would have to put those gases into different places, and up there, this pipe, that would probably lead to mixing of the atmospheres. But the solution is rather obvious, isn't it? We pump the air from the room into a buffer, and from the buffer we pump into wherever place we need to pump, for example back into the volatile section, until the buffer is evacuated. So when we want to use the airlock again, it's like the first time. It's completely virgin. It will still do the same thing, no atmospheres will mix. Perfect. The first version of the source code took exactly 128 lines, so it went down to here, the entire thing. And then I compressed it a bit. There was no comment. There was no comment there. There was no empty space there. It was all solid stuff. 128 exactly. It was baffling. You can experience what that was like by watching the 2 playthrough videos, the making of videos, that is of the Europa series, episode 11 and 12. I will link them in the description. So let's go through the source code. I'm addressing the devices directly, which saves some space and makes things more readable. And I don't plan on exchanging those vents. So if you would want to implement this yourself, and wouldn't write the source code yourself, then you can take this one, but you would have to replace the numbers. How do you do that? Well, you look at the thing with a device configuration cartridge. The configuration cartridge allows you to see values of various devices, and you can also see the reference ID. That is the objective number, always unique for every device. If I dismantle this thing and put it up there again, it will have a new number. This number will not be recycled, so your source code will be broken. But it doesn't matter. I mean, how often do you take this thing down once the airlock has been established? Before we talk more about the source code, let me show you something. Here I click export, which writes the source code in the chip that is down here, which also resets the chip. At least it will restart its program. And the airlock didn't blink an eye. That worked well. Let's flip to that section. And then export again. Yeah, nothing much is happening. But if you build the airlock at first, all 4 doors will be open. And the airlock doesn't know what the situation is. And I covered that case actually. If you insist, you can go this far and you can say all doors will then be closed. It will of course be evacuated, but then it won't pump into the room or into that room or into that room or into the volatiles room, but instead it will pump into a tank. Because you don't know what kind of mixture is in there. It's an emergency situation. All 4 doors were open. Dude, what's going on there? That's not supposed to be. At the beginning, the airlock doesn't know what to do, and so it will just pump into here. After I have just changed the source code like this. I will upload, though, the source code that is not changed like this. I will explain the source code. So this pumping is very slow, because these are not active vents. This is just a volume pump, and I also added a pressure regulator for good measure. The pressure regulator doesn't do much, except once we reach very low pressures, and we are actually going to that realm right now. Okay, I can't demonstrate it. The source code is in control. Because the volume pump would pump less and less and less, because it pumps by volume, and there's less gas per volume. But the pressure regulator pumps an absolute but small amount. And now the airlock is ready for use. It defaults to room 1, but you know, this is a custom implementation. You would have to change that around a bit depending on where you would do this. If you would do this at all. But I think it's a very cool airlock. It's very fast, and it has 4 rooms to choose from. And the pressure is always constant. 50.0. What's happening? When I just rebooted the airlock with this function that I just added, the room wasn't evacuated to the right place. It was evacuated to the tank. So, well, that doesn't count. Whoops. Anyway, let's restore that to its normal operation, which means that at first start it would then not pump into the tank for safety, but it would pump into room 1. I will explain the source code. Let's skip this. Let's first go over the rough sections. In the beginning, I'm defining all the devices so they can access them easily later. I'm preparing the doors. I'm resetting the buttons of the doors. Then I'm evaluating the buttons. And then, depending on which button has possibly been pushed, I start acting. I switch the LED to red. I close all doors. I wait until doors are indeed closed fully. Then I initialize the vents, the modes and such, which I have to do in some place. And I chose to do that down here because I also chose not to lock them, which saves me once again 4 lines, but also allows me to keep interfering with the situation by clicking on the vents, because I can still control them somewhat. Even though the source code will reset their state, I still can do some stuff. Then we evacuate the airlock, but we also evacuate the pipe system. And I am not moving on before both things have completed. And then we just say, okay, now we're in the other room, and then we open the respective door, and that's it. That's how the airlock functions. Let's go through the details. We need vent 0, which is the one that is in the airlock. And then of the 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we need the vents. For me, room 1 was this one, because the big hall here was the place, the venue where I wanted to make this happen. Room 2 is the one with the volatiles, because that's a room I definitely want. I want to toss volatile ices in there, and the advanced furnace over there will pipe through that room and make sure that there's always some warmth, and the large tank that we have seen in this hall will make sure that we have a place to put that gas, but also that we have a source to replenish that room again, so that there's a little bit of melty gas in there, trigger gas, you know. number 3 is the outside, definitely a room we have, and number 4 is just this green room that I made so that I could test the airlock and build it and so forth. It doesn't have a purpose. Then we have the 4 doors. Then we have the gas sensor in the airlock, which checks whether there's still pressure in there. The same for the pipe analyzer, which checks if there's still pressure in the buffer. Then for, if you want to go that far, the tank pump and tank pressure regulator. Then the LED, which is also not necessary. And now the interesting stuff starts. I have a reserved register, which remembers which room we're in. You remember that I put vent 0 here as a placeholder, expressing that the airlock doesn't know which room that is. This is a value that is actually checked down here, where I'm saying, oh, is this actually equal to vent 0? Then we use the pressure regulator stuff. So it's not just an arbitrary value, it's a value that has been agreed upon, basically, implementation-wise. So you would have to use this then. Or whatever, it's just, you don't have to do the airlock exactly like this, obviously. So we initialize with this room here. We assume this is the room that we start with. Then we also reserve another register for the button. Which button has been pushed. And because there needs to be a persistent value between main loop runs. It's not a temporary value that will be overwritten all the time. Then I set all the 4 doors to logic mode, so they cannot be operated by the user, but the button pushes will be registered and I can read them out. And I set lock to 0. I find that a bit disturbing. I think that the buttons in a normal airlock are always red with a console, you know, with the console-driven ones, the stuff that you find on your lander. And that somehow works. But if I lock the doors, then I cannot see the button pushes. Somehow the consoles can do something that MIPS cannot do, is my impression here. Then I turn the LED on, and these lines are for when I want to use the tank solution with the undefined state. Then I have to then I want to make sure that after this evacuation has completely taken place, it shall open one of the doors instead, so that I can see, oh, it's done, I can use the airlock now. And then I jump right down here to this label, which can be removed. You can use an absolute line number here if you want to save lines, but this is of course more safe. So I'm skipping down here directly, so that the airlock gets evacuated and so forth, and the doors close. But in normal circumstances, in the simple mode, basically, you wouldn't have the tank pump or the tank pressure regulator, maybe not even the LED, and your initial room value where you assume that you are would be, for example, room 1. Why am I using door 1 here and not like 0, 1, 2, 3 or whatever? Because I would want to define with this word, I want to define state 1, state 2, state 3, state 4, or room 1, room 3, and so forth. And then I set them to 1, 2, 3, or 4. That would be my value that expresses which room that is. But that wasted lines. I don't need those. I just need a unique value that tells me what's going on and tells the computer that it is either this or that. And the identity of the device here gets that job done quite well. Also, this allows me later down there to just open whatever door this then will be represent, instead of having to do 8 more lines for checks and opening the door. This saves quite a few lines to do it like this. Then, yeah, where was I? Then the main loop starts, which doesn't have any subroutines. It had some, but I just inlined everything and it works well this way. Where are we? Start. First, we need to reset the buttons. So I tell my button register it is vent 0, which is my agreed upon neutrality value. It could be a different one here, but for consistency's sake, I chose the same one. It doesn't have any implications. If I would use a different one here, I would just have to check. There's a vent 0 check down here that would also have to be equivalent then. Anyway, so then I'm loading if door 1 is open. And this value I also write into the setting value of the door, because when they're in logic mode and the door is open, then the setting value should also be 1. If I push the button now, the setting value would switch to 0. And if I push the button a few more times, the setting value will not change, it would stay 0. The setting value will just move away from what the door currently is. That's the idea. and I can actually initialize that value in a meaningful way, and I'm doing that. I'm making sure that this value is the same as that value so that I can properly, meaningfully register button pushes when the door is in mode 1, you know, the logic mode. Mode 0 is the default mode. I'm doing that for all 4 doors. Afterwards, I'm setting the LED color to white, so you can ignore that, and then I do the yield, which is necessary. Before this, I cannot evaluate the buttons. The door would have to have some time to, actually one game step, to realize, oh, this is going on, okay, I cannot react to button pushes or whatever. So the usual yield that we always put in our main loops wouldn't be up here, it would be after the initialization of the buttons. Now I need to evaluate the buttons. I'm loading from door 1 where that is open, and also what the setting is, so if the button has been pushed. And then I'm checking if there's a difference. If there's a difference, then the register 1, equivalent to door 1, see down, R2, door 2, R3, door 3, R4, door 4, that register will then be 1. I'm always using register R5 and R6 here, because 1, 2, 3, 4 are for door 1, 2, 3, 4, so 5 and 6 was the logical consequence. And 5 and 6 can be recycled because I only need them for a moment. So I'm loading whether door 1 is open into R5 and what the setting is to R6, and I'm evaluating is R5 and R6 not equal, NE not equal, and if they are not equal, then R1 of door 1 will be 1, else it will be 0. So if this is 1, this means the button has been pushed after my nice button reset up there. Here the same for door 2, R5, R6, R2, R5, R6, R3, R5, R6, R4. And now that I have these 4 logic statements of the 4 buttons, I'm adding them together. I'm saying add R1 and R2 into R0. So R0 is not a foundation of something that goes into this addition, so it is pure. I don't have to initialize R0 first or something. Just the result of R1 and R2 addition will be put in here, period. But here I'm using R0 as an element of the equation, not just as the target. So I'm adding R1 and R2, and then R3, and then R4. And so here I have the sum of all the logic statements. And so if no button has been pushed, this will be 0. If all buttons have been pushed, then it will be 4. If one button has been pushed, then it will be 1. And we can only meaningfully react if this thing is 1. So if it is not equal to 1, then we just jump back to start, where we reset the buttons, yield, and check the buttons again. So this goes over and over and over. Then I am checking which logic value is it. What do we want to do? Maybe I could have used a select value here to actually already write the door value in there. But okay, let's you know, everything can be improved a bit, can't it? So I'm checking, is R1, the logic value of door 1, equal to 0? If so, I will skip by 2 lines. 1, 2. In other words, then I continue checking for door 2 and so forth. But if it is not equal to 0, so it is 1, because the button has been pushed, then I'm saying the button that has been pushed is door 1. And here the same for door 2, door 3, door 4, and maybe this is a bit logically unnecessary, because I mean, what else remains but door 4? But I would need a branch statement to jump over this setting here, and this keeps it nice, readable and symmetric and identical. And also then here, for safety reasons which are unnecessary, I guess, but well, you know, to be absolutely safe, I'm also checking again, is the button maybe equal to yeah, this is actually stupid. Here I'm just checking if the button is equal to vent 0. What I should do instead, though, is I should just jump back to start unconditionally, because I mean, what if, however that came to be, button is neither door 1, door 3, door 4, door 2, nor vent 0, but something else? Then it would just go down here and do some stupid shit. That's not supposed to happen, so let's just jump back to start unconditionally. Ah, man, that was not the right move. Because then we never get to move on to the next stuff. Yeah, stupid me. Where is it? Yeah, right here. So if the button is not vent 0, which cannot really happen at this point, then we jump back. Then we fall through and we start with the thing. So this is where the cycle starts. We set the LED to red, which you don't need to if you don't have one. Then we close all doors. That absolutely needs to happen. And then we wait for the doors to be idle. That also absolutely needs to happen, because the doors need a short time to be closed, and you don't want to continue your airlock operations before the doors haven't actually completed what you wanted them to do. So I'm loading from door 1 whether it is idle. If it is idle, then this will be 1. So for example, if it's equal to 0, then it's not idle, and we want to wait for idle. Same for door 2, 3 and 4, just to be sure. I mean, the timing wise we have everything covered, but still, anyway, you don't know which door has been pushed and so forth. This makes it also very readable and absolutely safe. And then we initialize the vents. Mode 1 to suck from the room. This is the vent 0 in the airlock, and the others shall pump into the room from the pipe network. Then we set the pressure external to 200, so that they can overcome the 100 that I had in here and I was stuck in the airlock. And 200 is still safe, normally. I could even go to up to 230, but let's be on the safe side rather. Else it would not keep pumping into the room. It would just keep pumping, but it wouldn't do anything. It would just pretend to be pumping. It would probably also not consume much electricity. Usually it uses 500 watts, but in that moment probably not so much, I'm not sure. Anyway, and I also initialized the tank pump and pressure regulator, full power, or respectively pressure 0, which you don't need to if you don't have that part of the assembly. This, though, you need the pipe analyzer. Always first lock it and then set it to on or off, or what you want to do, because otherwise you might get a race condition. The user might click the on-off button, and then afterwards, when you set it to on, the user clicks it to off, and then the lock command here executes. You can't be sure, and if you want to be absolutely sure, you do it like this. You lock it so no one can interfere, and then you say, okay, now that I have my peace and quiet, I will set it to 1. That was initialization. Now let's have another loop here where we are waiting for something. We are evacuating. I'm loading the pressure from the airlock sensor. If the pressure is greater than 0, then R0 here of the airlock pressure sensor shall be 1. And then I'm setting the airlock suck event to on, depending on that value. So if there's still pressure, it will be on, else it will be off. Then I'm loading from the pipe analyzer of the buffer up there, all these red pipes. I'm loading the pressure from the pipe analyzer and do the same. If they're greater than 0, then it will become 1. So R0 is for the airlock pressure and R1 is for the pipe pressure. And then I'm doing some stuff. I have to decide which of the devices is supposed to evacuate the pipe network, because that depends on the room that we're supposedly in, or that we supposedly came from. The room value has not yet been overwritten, so the assumption that we're in room 1 or came from room 1 is still true. Now we're checking if it's not equal to door 1, you know, my identifier for which room this is, which conveniently is also already the door device identity. Then we jump down here. But if it is equal to room 1, to door 1, then the vent that we turn on or not on, depending on the logic statement here, will be vent 1. That blows, that was the upright vent at the wall that pumps into this room. This one is in the volatiles room, this one is out there outside, and this one is in the green room. Very simple. And if you have that set up with the tank, then here I have my check. Is room actually set to my placeholder for undefined? If so, then we do this, as we skip over these two lines by saying 1, 2, 3. You know, we're stepping 1, 2, 3. But if it's equal, then this will happen. The pump will be turned on, question mark, on the pressure regulator also. But now something interesting. I take the logic value of this and the logic value of that. And if either of them is 1, then we want to jump back up here. So I'm saying into register R2, I want the addition result of R0 and R1. So if there's still pressure in the airlock, or if there's still pressure in the pipe network, or both even, then this dude here will not be 0. It will be 1 or 2. So if that dude is greater than 0, then we jump back up there. For those who are confused, you don't need to do this, you can also do this, but I mean, why not if you can, right? So then after this has happened, we are now officially arrived in a new room, and so I'm saying room shall be button, because the button represents the room identity via the door value. Remember up there when we were requesting the doors, the buttons, I was saying which button has been pushed. Okay, then we move door 1, door 2, door 3 in there, just like I already also initialized the room value with, wait, where is it? With door 1, the same thing, you know, the very same thing. And say that the button value, which is door 1 for example, is now the room value. And then I'm just saying, open that door, whichever door it is. So quite a few lines saved here. And jump back to start. That's the airlock. The source code will be in the description. Fast airlock, right? Very practical. I had to do some stuff out here because the room was getting too hot, because I needed some electricity, and so I ran my experimental gas fuel generator here, which produces a lot of heat, and so the room was getting over 50 degrees, and so I just quickly installed this counterflow heat exchanger, pumped some gas from the outside to the outside through it, and from the inside to the inside through it. So I had to get in and out quite a few times. That was after I had made the airlock. That was convenient, man. Look how fast this dude is. I cannot let it automatically cycle, because how would it know where to go? Maybe I could use proximity sensors, which are properly placed and properly adjusted, so that if I get close to this door, it will realize, that's the one you need. Okay, that might work. I'm not sure. Maybe not, but it's certainly something to think about. Okay, that's it. The making of links will also be in the description. If you're interested in that, that is me fiddling and thinking out loud and cursing and making mistakes and making some jokes and making some interesting observations. For example, the speed of this dude and which thing do I need here and blah blah blah. The whole shebang is in two playthrough episodes, number 11 and number 12 of the Europa playthrough. And that's it for today. Have fun. I know I will.